Just see what we... stream. All right, so hey everyone, happy Friday. How's things going? Let me know if you're watching how the quality is on the audio and stuff like that. Make sure it works. Let me know if anything looks weird. I did a lot of things different on this setup, and for example, obviously I changed like the whole lighting and stuff. I still got some tweaks to do on that, but I changed the whole setup, intro, outro screens, all that stuff. I upgraded to the latest Linux version, which broke everything. Like, I couldn't open applications, so I had to install a new little thing to do that. I couldn't open movie files, so I had to do a little thing. I couldn't even access the settings, and so I had to like literally command line some nonsense to like get the settings available. It's just like jam and jellyfish is terrible. So yeah, I went through a lot of that stuff. And one of the features that I use in OBS to screen share, as in to beam in the screen, like you can see Chuck right now, I assume. That feature is gone. So there's a new feature I had to like install some special thing on and stuff. So
all last minute, huh? Of course.
Yeah, it's all. In fact, I was going to interview the THORChain lead dev guy, Chad, yesterday, and I had a problem, and I had to reschedule for Monday. So that's annoying. So all in all, let me just see how many people are watching now. We've got some on YouTube. We've got a bunch of people on Odyssey. I guess everyone just likes to watch on Odyssey, which is nice. I mean, I'd rather have it there than YouTube, except usually YouTube ends up working out a little bit better. All right. And if you are, I think that's probably good. All right, let me roll the intro, and then we'll just go right into this thing. I'll tell people about all the features and stuff like that. Then we just go right into the stories. All right, 3, 2, 1, boom. So, hey everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown, the relaunch. I haven't done this since a few weeks, at least a couple months ago, because if you guys don't remember, my internet completely crapped out, and I had to actually have people install like a different cable to the house and stuff to figure that out. And I figured this is a good time to transition to a channel relaunch, which is exactly what I've done. And so, as part of this, I've updated like the intro. The little intro graphic thing was cooler than before, and a few other things. I started doing NFT superchats and a lot of other cool stuff. And yeah, it's and I did a few like solo news shows, which are always fun, but not as fun as with a friend, and especially a friend like Chuck. So I'm joined by the one and only Chuck Williams. How's it going, man? I didn't mean to time that in the middle of the sip, but you're done. So, all right. now you may say I may sip.
Very glad to be here. Very glad to be here. I too have changed my entire setup. I relocated my life and went from married to single, and went from Florida to Texas, and I'm living a very different lifestyle than last I was on the show. So
Yeah.
lots of changes for me too. Yeah, new job, new life, new home, new everything. Same laptop as last time,
New
but
hairdo.
other than that, new hairdo. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about changes and stuff. Well, before we jump into the news stuff and everything, I'd like to draw your attention to uh, the live event NFT super chat. So, as promised, as I talked about before, I started, I launched an NFT super chat where basically, if you have one of my NFTs, you can get into my Discord and get exclusive access to channels, one of which is the super chat channel I'm using for this show. So you buy the NFT, there's a bot that checks if you have it, and then now you can do it. And if you sell and get rid of the NFT, boop, you're out of the channel. And just like checks. So it's like proof of NFT. And I thought that was like a cool way of like actually having value behind something like that. And if you don't, so in the description, don't do it now, maybe watch the show first, but there's a link on where to buy this stuff. I have it on Atomic Hub right now, the Wax, the big Wax blockchain market, the open sea of Wax, which is quite popular as it turns out. And so you can go there. And I will be doing other stuff in the future. But right now, the first 100 supporter NFTs are all on Wax. I'm not making any more. Some people have already scooped up a few of those. So before, I think I listed 40 so far for sale. I'm gonna list the others later. But anyways, that's how you get them. And then in the actual NFT mutable description, there's a mutable data section, which I can change at a later date. So I can never take your NFT from you, but I can change a piece of it by interacting with the smart contract, etc. And in there, it has the directions of how to get in to the Discord. It has a link and it has where the channel would go in. And then you can just go do that whole thing. So that's pretty cool. Drawing that attention to that. We do have a super chat. I'm not going to get to it just immediately because I want to hit on the first story, which is the whole THORChain thing, which I don't really need to read. I didn't send you a link to the thing. Are you familiar with the whole THORChain privacy drama thing?
I have not seen this. I've been very busy, but I see you sent me a tweet, and it looks like they're debating about creating a second THORChain fork for privacy assets and experimental THORFi features. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So let me do the TLDR on this whole thing. So
Yeah.
THORChain is a DEX, a decentralized exchange, and an automated market maker. And so it's basically a cross-chain Uniswap. You can stake, you can provide liquidity and get money for it. You can just swap any token for any token, except it's L1 for L1. It's no wrapped Bitcoin for wrapped Ethereum or whatever. You just can swap Bitcoin for Ethereum trustlessly, or, it goes into the pool and auto comes out. Whoop. And so
They call them on-chain swaps.
Yes, it's basically like a dream. It's not like an atomic swap where you have to line up the exact trade you want with the exact other person, then hit a button and it does it. It just goes in a pool, out of pool, just like a regular exchange. So it's like the CeFi experience on DeFi, which is, it's kind of like the Holy Grail in a lot of ways. Now, of course, it's run by people and stuff like that, and that's where we get into the complexity of the situation. So TornadoCash happened. Right? TornadoCash, of course, was a mixing service for Ethereum, a privacy enhancement technique, and an open source smart contract that allows people to fix their privacy. Now, the problem with that is the
Regulators going to regulate.
Yes. Allegedly, some North Korean hackers used it to launder money. I love that term. Just put a little bit of extra, put a dryer sheet in there too, make sure it gets all spiffy. But they sanctioned TornadoCash, meaning that all the addresses, the exiting addresses of TornadoCash, they put on their blacklist. So any funds coming from there are now sanctioned. And they arrested a developer in the Netherlands who was one of the developers of TornadoCash, which is really shitty and scary. And in the wake of all this stuff, what should we do? Are they coming for us? All this stuff. THORChain, the node operators and community members freaked out basically, and they just said, "Oh no, they're going to come for us too. We're nowhere near big and established enough to deal with being banned. So we were going to add a few privacy assets." I think it was kind of like next on their list was Dash, which is it's kind of like half in the crosshairs, half not, because Dash has a built-in CoinJoin mixing service. But it's like
checkered past.
Yeah, but it's like depending on who you ask, is it like a privacy coin or not? You know, I mean, the facts are just the same, but just like the definitions or how you can consider it, and that's literally all it is how do you consider it. They're going to add that as well as Haven, which is a weird stablecoin project that's like built on like a fork of Monero or something like that, and of course Monero itself. And that's kind of the perk of something like THORChain, a really real decentralized exchange, is to be able to do all this without worrying about delistings. Unfortunately, you do have to worry about that because now they're like, I don't think they specifically mentioned, I don't think Dash got under the crosshairs of this, but definitely Monero did, where they're like, oh, hold on, let's not add these next to our platform because that could cause us to be arrested or whatever, and we're too big. We're too big. We have too much to risk right now, but at the same time, we're not big enough to resist regulation, to actually resist a nation state. That's kind
You're
of
speaking in the context of the THORChain founders, creators. Like, where's the business here? If it's a DEX, right? Like, who's worried about this?
The node operators. So
yeah, okay.
If you run the thing, they basically there's a bunch of nodes which have a ton of collateral behind them. They're like several $1 million nodes, right? Because each node has to run a full node of every single chain supported. And so it's like you're running an Ethereum node, a Bitcoin node, a Litecoin node, a Bitcoin Cash node, a Bitcoin Binance Smart Chain node. Now you're running a Cosmos node. Now you're running, what else is there? They were doing what do they call it? Terra nodes, but I think that's kind of gone. But so you have to run all these nodes, and then you have to have a big bond, which is like, it's like a proof of stake type deal, right? You have to have enough, like a master node kind of thing. And as far as I know, I haven't looked super deep into the way it works, but as far as I know, they churn through nodes as far as it's like, kind of like a quorum, right? Where you just go through this or that. And so it's just like they churn through nodes. So it's not like there's a static list of nodes to attack, but there's a bunch of nodes in waiting. So but basically, these people running this infrastructure have a lot invested in the infrastructure, but way more in the collateral that secures the network, right? And these people got scared, essentially. A lot of these people.
Of course.
Right?
And of course, reasonably so. You're talking about IT people who are familiar with the technology, and generally they're concerned about legal issues. Generally, not all.
It's funny. Hilawi is in the YouTube chat, but he has an NFT that gets him into the super chat. So I'm just like yelling at him for being a boomer and not getting in there.
I did receive the honeycomb NFT, by the way. Just side note.
Yeah, so that's gonna be cool, some cool stuff. But this is like the first thing just to show how it works anyway. So first off, what's your take? Do you think that and I should add a wrinkle to this, and it's not a complete wrinkle because I was going to chat with Chad Barraford, kind of the main guy of THORChain, kind of the founder. I mean, with all these open source projects, it's always a little murkier. But basically the big guy, and he is very
well. Twitter recommends him when you look at THORChain.
Well, there you go. That's Twitter official. Proof of Twitter. But he is very upset with the fear. Like he thinks that the point of, and I won't speak for him. I'll let him speak for himself on my channel. Hopefully to release on Tuesday. We'll see. On this. But he seems disappointed with the sudden fear on adding what could be called privacy assets. So what's your whole take on this guffaw?
Well, I mean, just kind of going in reverse order. Like I can empathize with Chad's concern because he's probably in a place to know that it's probably a safe bet, or it's legally sound, or at least legally not risky. Like there's a high probability of success in passing through regulation and things like that. But, I think it's interesting just kind of rolling all the way back, kind of in related news. I don't know if you heard that the United States Congress recently voted to exclude themselves from audit based on the new 87,000 IRS agents that have been hired. Yeah, they excluded themselves. And I just think it's interesting
So
that
is this Congress as a whole or the members of Congress?
the members of Congress are excluded now from audit.
So horrendously corrupt.
Right. So I kind of want to juxtapose that against this action that's being taken against the TornadoCash and the THORChain and the fear. Right. It's not like the fear is not justified, but we have to do something. If anybody's going to do anything, it's these kinds of people. It's professionals who are running nodes that are real options to opt out of the control systems that these kinds of manipulators are only doing to sustain themselves and protect themselves, and continue the grift, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't want any threats to their own currency, and that's why they're cracking down on crypto in any way that they can, with, of course, the classic guise of safety and protection from who Koreans who are laundering money. What I mean, it could have been $500.
Probably
doesn't
was.
really matter. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what it was? But you're going to tell me that no members of Congress are laundering any money? I mean, Pelosi never received any money that was possibly laundered. I mean, either that or she's the best investor of all time, So
Yeah.
I just like to look at these kinds of things and just kind of paint the picture of, this is really an us versus them kind of thing. You've got technological professionals who are in the know, who are trying to do their best to align with what the degraded and despot of Congress, who is making up rules as they go along that are just completely unbased in reality whatsoever. Like they're just continuing a theft and a grift. And you got other people over here who are trying to exchange value, creating a decentralized exchange. And why is it decentralized? Because of the crap like what the Congress is pulling with their cronyistic protectionism of theft, and so it's really disgusting to me that a lot of people can't see this, and they'll point the finger and they'll say, "Ooh, laundering money," and they'll cry wolf on these experimental projects when you have a very real threat that is literally grifting from your pocket through inflation and self-protectionizing themselves, socializing the losses and privatizing all of their gains, and basically removing any possibility for accountability on any of this. And here you got node operators who apparently don't even have the balls to do what Congress has done, what these idiots in Congress have done, to just maintain and protect their own turf. It's really disappointing. So I can understand Chad's perspective in that way.
Yeah. So the funny thing about this, so I have to admit I'm in Chad's camp. I mean, big shocker, right? I have to also admit I don't have a big old pile of money. I worked my whole life on a job I hate in order to accrue, in order to run this kind of infrastructure. Like I don't have the risk profile they do. The thing that's disappointing isn't that like they're complying with government anything, because they're not. Like you can buy Monero on Kraken. Kraken's based in San Francisco. Also known
they're complying with fear.
Yeah, they're just, it's like, well, what if they come after us? Like, let's just, and that's the disappointing part, I think. Now, the thing is, in all fairness, because we want to be fair here, THORChain hasn't done anything yet. And it's, first off, it's not a monolith, right? It's a bunch of independent node operators. And so a bunch of them have expressed things. The official Twitter account, whoever runs that, I mean, so a person runs that, right? And they've said some stuff that the rest of the THORChain community has disagreed with in the past. So I'm not going to consider that to be the voice of everyone, but has said some kind of weak ass things. Now the nodes do vote, or they have a voting system on which chain should be added next, and they're able to say that kind of stuff. But I think Haven and Monero got enough votes to where it looked like it's not like they're scared of adding it. So it's like, obviously recency too. It's like they arrest an open source developer, you freak out, and then you just start, oh, what are we gonna do? We can't do this. It'll ruin everything. And a few weeks go by and you have like a clear thought on it. So I'm not going to judge too harshly yet. We'll see what happens. But like, it is disappointing. It is a very different point of view, by the way, from like, I noticed a lot of like Ethereum OGs like standing up against this kind of stuff. Like, we're under attack and we need to stand up. And then using TornadoCash to like spam attack a whole bunch of people so that like, Jimmy Fallon's going to prison if they enforce this thing, like just like making sure that like their absurd laws have to be lived by, or, just like that kind of stuff. A lot of like obviously Bitcoin, recent Bitcoin maxis, old school Bitcoiners for sure. And I like, for example, in my, Monero people, of course, don't give a crap. In my experience, almost no one that I've seen in the Dash community has been like, we need to comply. Oh my gosh, like a lot of the more old school communities are just like flipping off the government. But just the difference with THORChain is it's a new DeFi kind of thing. That the 2021 DeFi boom had a lot of like new money coming in that's not as principled necessarily. It's like DeFi, I'm sure they believe in the mission, but they also believe in their bags. And it's not as much of like a cypherpunk, like I had nothing, I bought 1 million Bitcoin, I'm super loaded, but I don't value that. I value the free. Like, it's not that same mindset. It's a little bit more of a cautious fun mindset. So I have noticed that difference, that even if THORChain's like, you know what, we're just going to add everything in order of like Zcash first, then Monero, then Haven. We're just going to, that's the order because we're going to show that we're not afraid and screw you government. Even if they did that, there's still a little they can't walk back just because of how much, like kind of like some people show their sentiments. But all in all, there have been there's a upcoming fork called the Maya protocol, which is supposed to be like the Litecoin to Bitcoin of THORChain. Like, we're doing it too. We're like a friendly fork, and like, we'll try to do things a little differently, but mostly the same. And I've heard some rumblings from them that since this whole thing, they might be pivoting to be like, we're adding all the privacy coins first. So
really?
That's
interesting.
And that was there's ideas of like, well, THORChain's too valuable, so let's make a not valuable copy of THORChain and just deploy all the risky stuff on there.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm sorry for ranting so long on this, because I'll shut up after this, right? But THORChain also already did back off of something a few months ago when the whole Luna thing crashed. They just added Luna, and then Luna and UST just like went to nothing.
Oh yeah.
And one of the most exciting things about THORChain was going to be THORFi, where you could do collateralized lending of like base assets. So you like take out a loan on your Bitcoin in some little stable coin that they did, and you could do just a whole bunch of cool financial things, and it was going to be awesome.
Could you be the lender? You could be the lender side, right?
Yeah,
they were for both sides.
If you're a liquidity provider in the pool is the lender. So you could get some money off of that stuff. So, but they did that by issuing and burning, do like an issue and burn algorithmic stablecoin. That's how they're planning on doing it. But after Luna crashed, they got cold feet really quick and just put that on the back burner. Like, just said, like, look, we're going to add more chains. We're going to do other stuff. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but it was still like a current event, changed their priority list really fast. And I don't like that. I'm just going to say, I just don't like that. The first choice might have been a smart choice, but I don't like the motivation. And I don't like that the current event makes them like, oh, we should just not do privacy. So, end rant. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, it's probably a relevant rant because, you made me think of a lot of things, but most of these things fit into the categorical buckets of the innovation adoption lifecycle. I've been in software for 20, 25 years, and the innovation adoption lifecycle is something that I look at with every single project that I look at. And it's basically broken up into 5 different categories. You got your innovators, that's the first 2.5%. You got your early adopters, that's the next 13.5%. Got your early majority, that's 34%, the late majority, and then your laggards, 34 and 16%. If you look at the numbers, and this is something I've been trying to track for a long time. First off, crypto and Bitcoin is the fastest adopted technology in history, even faster than the internet itself. But most technology takes a while to get into the public space. Even with the internet, it was 25 years before you really got past that first 2.5%. I would say, no, I'm sorry, not 25 years. When the internet was, it depends on when you count the launch of the internet, but I think it was the early 70s. You're sitting in that innovator phase for the first almost 20 years until you get to like 1995 or so, when you get out of the innovators and into the early adopter phase. And there's a big difference in the psychology between the innovators and the early adopters. And this is what I was going to point out between, you got the OGs who were like foo-foo whatever, and with THORChain, I think it's probably made up of more of these early adopter types when you talk about the crypto space at large, which may be an indicator that we're moving out of that innovator phase. We're 10, 12 years into the crypto era now, and it seems about right. Maybe we are past that 2.5% of we're not going to get global adoption. We're not going to get 7 billion people on the planet using crypto. That's probably not going to happen within our lifetimes, because half the planet doesn't even have access to a computer, right? Like, that's still a thing. So you kind of have to look at it.
Let me counter that a little bit, just from like again, I'm sorry for
you're good
for my jumping in there, but I do personally think, just on that point, people born today, like 90% of them will probably touch crypto at some point in their lifetimes. That's just what I think. But anyway,
it seems likely. Yeah, no, I wouldn't rule that out. No, I'm just like with a lot of people. It depends on if you include cell phones as owning a computer, because then you get to a larger percentage of the planet for sure.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the psychological differences between innovators and early adopters are very marked. The innovator group is loyal. They are very, very resilient. They will tolerate mistakes and failures, and they'll keep coming at it, and they'll still support it because they believe in the principles of whatever the technology represents. But the early adopters are not so tolerant. The early adopters want a bit more safety. They want they too often believe in the principles, but it's got to work ultimately, and it's got to work often goes to the minds of especially left brain people. It's got to be legal. It's got to work with our government system within the regulations. And if there's any confusion there, the early adopters hit friction and fear. And they just won't tolerate it. And if you don't appease the early adopters, you'll never get to the early majority. Basically, that's how it is, because it's the early adopter crowd that's really sensitive enough to the transition. There's a chasm between the early adopters and the early majority that you have to bridge across, and that takes a lot of analysis over the specific problems that you have to solve. All of those problems that the early adopters see as problems before you can get into the early majority. So, I don't want to discount those fears, but in my opinion, again, agreeing with Chad, but still at the same time, I think there's some empathy that needs to be said for these node operators who are trying to express concerns. If they are operating in fear, then we really need to articulate exactly what they're afraid of, and we need to have a solution for that. We need to offer something that's going to work for them. And I think they're out there. I think there's ways, there's legal structures, there's further decentralization, there's risk reduction, hedging, conglomeration, there are creative business models. There's all kinds of things that could be done to reduce the risk or share the risk, or that's what Satoshi Nakamoto did. I mean, if we look to that principle of take all the risk and spread it out, in such a way that it would be very costly to go after everybody.
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Open it up, put it out there.
I'll have to censor myself from saying anything, because otherwise we'll never get to these things. So here is the NFT super chat from the Discord right here. First, one time says, "Hi, Joel and Chuck. So here's a question: Is writing open source code a crime? How can a developer be punished or even accused of a crime for what someone else does by using his code?" One time. And before we get into that, I should just note, for some reason, this super chat thingy sometimes doesn't display the username. Like I have to like reset it sometimes. I don't know what's up with that, but whatever. So thank you one time for saying who said it. And also, as you see, there's a CoinTree chat still for those who just want to do the old school pay with crypto, get the whole thing. The clunkier experience, maybe you can still do that. So anyway, what do you think, Chuck? How can a developer be punished or even accused of a crime for what someone else does by using his code?
Okay, so there's two ends of this spectrum. There's the Ross Ulbricht case, who is currently spending 3 life sentences for building a website. Shout out to Ross Ulbricht, free Ross. It's really unfortunate if you get targeted, and it's a legitimate fear in that way. They didn't put him in jail for writing code, but that's essentially what it was. So I think that there is some responsibility that a developer has to have to either keep themselves anonymous, like Satoshi Nakamoto, if they're creating something that can be a threat to government, because that's something that I think you kind of need to take into account when you create a thing. You really have two paths: either you're completely anonymous or you're extremely public, so that when they come down on you, it's known, and you can, as long as you live with integrity, you should be able to survive such a storm. But again, there's cancel culture, there's all kinds of issues with taking that kind of risk. So just to directly answer the question, I think writing open source code is not a crime. It's essentially free speech, and that's been demonstrated a number of times in a number of cases. How can a developer be punished or even accused of a crime for what someone else does by using his code? These prosecutors are extremely creative, and the FBI and CIA are not above framing individuals should they so choose, or be paid to so choose. So that would be how I think in most cases that I've seen developers get punished for writing code, like John McAfee and Ross Ulbricht and Cody Wilson and a number of other people who have written code and been punished.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those things where I think, unfortunately, for better or for worse, but largely for, this is a radically new world, and the old world doesn't know what to do. And let's be honest, like, before, someone did everything. Now there's stuff that like no one did, which is so weird. It's like, well, who runs this? Kind of like right. It's like but in the past there were things that no one was responsible for, but they were God made, so to speak, like gold. Where did gold come from? The Lord. It was the Lord spake and yay. Like it just comes from the ground. It just was there. Like there's no one you can like arrest for building this substance. But then everything else was man-made and someone was in charge of it. But now it's just, there's stuff that's man-made that just no one kind of made. Like, well, this guy wrote this, that guy took that, wrote a little bit, and then it's just words out there, and then people just start running things, and then from bit to bit, and then it's like, well, who? It's like, well, you can't kind of criminalize everyone. And the other thing is just like, part of it is just it's ludicrous to criminalize people, but also just like file sharing, you're not going to catch them all. Right, you're not going to catch enough people, and what you got to do is, as I like to call it, the Overton window, meet in the middle shtick, where you do something like this is the way the world is now. The government's going to regulate the crap out of it right where it is and push it further in the past, of course, because whatever.
Yep.
But then what you got to do is you got to go, all the way over here. And just make sure there's someone fighting at this front. So they're like, no, we want to bring you back to here. Make it so that it's hopeless to stop this front. And then just be like, oh, okay. Let's meet in the middle. And the middle is significantly freer than where we used to be. So, for example, let's just say there's banned assets. Like, let's just throw Monero, because it's probably most likely to be banned of all the assets, right? Let's just add that. So what if THORSwap or Asgard Dex or DeFi Spot or any of these front ends just choose to not like show or list Monero as an option? But you can still like make your own that doesn't have it black. It's still on THORChain, right? It just that the interface is kind of like how Uniswap does this already, by the way. There's already a few tokens and things that aren't available on the Uniswap user interface, but are able to be traded on Uniswap other than that. So you could say like it's kind of like use a VPN at that point, right? It's just like in the US, THORSwap cannot trade these assets. And it's just like, all right, well then use a different asset or use a different front end or use a VPN on that front end, and then there you go. And it's kind of like that thing, or just like THORSwap does what it wants, THORChain does what it wants, and the individual, if we find out that you've been using Monero, you're going to go to jail, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then,
Okay.
which that also sucks, but or more importantly, and the way it turns out with like file sharing, like if you download a movie, no one really cares. But if you are, for example, hosting a streaming service for UFC pay-per-views, and you're allowing like people all over the world to just not pay the $70 or whatever it costs to watch one of those suckers, they're gonna get you. But they're probably gonna get almost no one who like they don't even care about anyone who watches your stream. So it could be something like that that goes to the middle. Or what I'd like to see long term, which I do believe is possible longer term, is the criminality gets traced to activity. It's not like, oh, you were caught using this thing. It's just like, we have evidence that you received this much in income and you paid taxes on a third of it. And we figured it out through, we're not going to tell you how. We don't care to use Monero the whole way, but we figured it out and we're going to come after you, and just the tool is incidental. That's probably the way I'd like to see it go, but it might not be, it might take a while for that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you went there, because that second option seems to me more likely that will go that way, because if they have to go the first route where an asset is banned or there is an illegality associated with a particular asset, well, basically at that point they have to demonstrate that this code that was written that people choose to run on a computer is somehow inherently illegal. And what the only route that they can go with it is, well, it makes people too free, therefore it's illegal, or it hides too much information, therefore it's illegal. Okay, so and to me there's a fundamental flaw in there, because they're going to have to cross the boundary of the mind into the minds of others, essentially. Because if you were to somehow be psychic and recreate the code for Monero and run that code, letter for letter on your computer, they would have to say, okay, that was an illegal act, inherently, or just producing and executing this code is illegal. I can't see them actually getting to that place. I just don't think that they can actually get there from a legal perspective. I do, for as much as I don't like the governmental systems, I think the judicial systems at least they live on definitions, and they're going to be hard pressed to find a definition for code and speech that makes it inherently illegal. It's going to be very, very difficult.
Well, it's
so
kind
I
of
just
like
don't see them going that
thing,
path.
right? When encryption was banned before, and then now they're just
right.
Like, you gotta have encryption. I think it kind of turned that way, I think.
Well, and the encryption ban, that was it. The impetus came from the military. They were trying to protect they were just trying to protect their turf. That's just what hierarchies do. That's especially governmental hierarchies. They just wanted to protect what was theirs, and that's where all that effort, that impetus came from. I don't know if we have that so much here with this, because this creation wasn't in the military first, right? So there's not that protectionary turf when it comes to crypto in general. It's already in the public domain, right? So I just think that they're going to be really hard pressed to make any particular digital asset illegal. So the second route in terms of activity, and this is where I think it gets really interesting, because if they're going to say, oh, you earned income, okay, well, if they're going to claim that you've earned income by these digital tokens that exist in this abstract space that only humans are placing value on, and was not issued by fiat by any group or government or international agency of any kind that lives in that system, if they're going to say that that's income, then they are de facto acknowledging
It's money.
it as value. It's money. Exactly. It's money. They're declaring it as money as soon as they do that. So that opens up a whole can of worms for them too. So they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't. That's why I think they're very much hands off with it.
Yeah, and this whole thing, I mean, this is like an 8-hour discussion, by the way. So I'm going to shift gears really soon. But it also goes to, I do think that once anyone can create any valuable token, like they create currencies, but then you create like gas tokens that power like smart contracts and stuff. This isn't really a money. It's a different thing. And then you create NFTs, which could just be a little collectible for being on the show, or it could be a valuable thing like the ones I'm selling to get on the super chat thing. And so, which by the way, the ones I'm giving to you also get you in there. So it's guest privilege. But anyway, at some point, is every NFT valuable? At some point, is like an NFT, do you have to sell one? Because like right now, my entire NFT inventory, I have like almost 100 NFTs because I still have a lot that I haven't got rid of, right? The value on Atomic Hub says 0 because none of these have been traded yet for money. And so, but as soon as I sell one of these for $100, then all of a sudden, all of that is considered valuable according to the government. Now that's money. Like it gets a little weird as far as like, can I trade things back? What if I trade them back and forth? What if I just acquire for free, but I acquire a whole bunch of these like crappy little let's just say like Ken Bozak, like I actually bought one of his that's like himself, a doodle of himself as like, what's his name? Let me tell you something, brother. The whole Hulk Hogan thing. So I own a Hulk Hogan Ken Bozak NFT. Like, I did pay money because just as a thank you to him for helping me out with all the NFT stuff. But like, what happens if like he makes something like that and someone just like acquires it as a gift, and it's just it's just a little fun little token that means nothing. It's just a badge you can use as your profile picture, whatever. And then someone sells one of those for like $100,000. All of a sudden, the IRS is knocking on your door. Like that doesn't make sense. So at some point, and I hate to say it this way, I love to say it, but the government's not going to want to hear it. At some point, they're going to have to move to a mutual exchange model of taxation or a cost basis. Like you pay for this. You don't. It's like, can you imagine if you go to a coffee shop? Hey, I'll have a latte. It's like, well, how much money do you have? I mean, I'm like a millionaire. All right, this could be $1,000. Like no one does that. That's just ridiculous. Only the government does this stuff.
Yeah, no.
But it's just like they're going to be like, do you want the roads package? It's going to cost you this much. Do you want the police package? Do you want the premium police package? Which, by the way, I did learn the other day in New Hampshire, if you start, like if you have to, like you're getting divorced or whatever, and you have to go to your house to get your belongings, and the police will escort you for free for like 15 or 20 minutes. But after that, then they start charging you.
Oh, wow.
Like if it takes longer than that, if you're not just in and out with your stuff, they'll just like, now the town starts sending you a bill. And so it's like,
oh, man.
That's, I mean, not to get too personal with all that nonsense, but like, isn't that kind of cool that you just pay for what you use? And imagine if it's just like, all right, so property taxes are literally a membership for living in a community, kind of, but they're billed based on how big your house is. And I don't like that either, but like at least you don't have to do this horrible like data tracking and like, well, how much do you make? It's like, well, if you don't want to use a bunch, you can just have that. So fee-based kinds of models, like subscription-based kind of models, for even if there's mandatory subscriptions, which I don't like that either, but it's like, all right, if you live here, based on how much percentage of the city you have to pay a certain amount a year because you live here. and anything else is add on, then it doesn't matter. You have to trace what people value with tokens, and they just have to be able to like take payment from you for whatever you use, and you don't have to worry about all this like, dark illegal this and that, and pay your fair share of that. It's like,
Well, there's a critical element there that I feel like you're almost, I don't know if you're avoiding or glazing over or forgetting, or maybe you're inherently including, and I'm not really seeing it tied in very well. But there's the free market. In the free market, even though these governments do these things, they still look to the free market to confirm value, even if it's a lagging indicator with the assessor's office who, looks at comparables at a certain period of time. There's still, like counties have classifications of land, and there's still different ways that they will look at things, and they are very community oriented, right? It could be a community of farmers, and they're going to tax it different. A farm different than a residence, right? That's just how they do things in most counties, and so there's. But again, even those classifications are what? Market driven, right? So those classifications only exist because there's markets for farms and there's markets for residences, and sometimes you want a farm that is a residence and they have special treatment for that. And my point is that, in my opinion, it is the free market that first defines organically by, what do you call that, emergence. The emergent property of the free market is both value and classification. And all regulatory bodies do is look to that to identify and classify and then tax based on what the free market is saying a thing is worth. Because you could have a giant house that's a piece of shit, like that in the middle of Detroit when half of Detroit is leaving, right? They're selling whole blocks and swaths for $100, 10 pennies on the dollar that it was, 10, 20 years ago. It's like Flint, Michigan with our water issues, right? Like that's still a thing. They still haven't resolved it, and they may never. So
of course,
those are the kinds of issues that you end up when you have these hierarchical control systems that think that they're leading, but are really lagging. And that's all that they are. They're lagging the market, and they're trying to be a parasite on the market to extract value from whatever they can, because that's just what they do. That's how they survive. That's how they live.
Well, yes. And by the way, Greatwolf in another comment said, like, 8 hours sounds good to me. One of these days, we're going to have like a big old compendium, something like that, like a 3 hour something on this. But so going back to this, Greatwolf said about the THORChain thing, I think at the end of the day, it's who has a big stick. Right now, it's the government. Force makes right, or might makes right is really the saying, but whatever. And OneTime says, and it's about THORChain's vulnerably located USA-controlled cloud servers. They need to internationalize to harden the decentralization and the uncensorability of THORChain. And that's the key.
I like that.
Right there is
at 333. I like that.
Yeah, 333. I think that that is absolutely the key here, is that we have an unfortunate situation where, like, structurally decentralized, right? And that's the kind of cool thing about when Bitcoin got its mining ban in China.
Oh yeah.
It kind of showed the resiliency of proof of work to be able to just kind of like show back up somewhere else. Except the dark side of that is it showed up a lot of it in the US, and now it's like, what, you're going to ban it in the US? It's like, oh, or are you going to start regulating mining pools? And I'd rather have more separation of powers, but that's a different story. But yeah, that's really the thing with THORChain. I think that if THORChain had anon-devs, which I think some of them are, but if they were all anon, like let's just say the old team complete, and that was, by the way, one of the plans of THORChain was after mainnet at some point, and mainnet did get implemented a couple months ago, was to just, the dev team just quits, and then some new team takes it over after that. And so, like a new anon team, and that might be the way to go. But then also you just have to start doing cloud servers and things like that in other jurisdictions. And
there's so much that's lost with that, though. When you change dev teams, like there's just so much loss.
Yeah, I kind of like to not lose the whole team. Just have like people come and go over time, and it just like, Anyway, we need to get to another store. Otherwise, it's going to be like
Oh, yeah.
really the THORChain only thing.
All right.
This is, I threw a couple of stories together about Ethereum because of the merge. Ethereum dev addresses node centralization concerns in a run up to the merge. A majority of the 4,653 active Ethereum nodes are being run through centralized web providers like Amazon Web Services, which experts believe could be a central point of failure. And it's a few weeks away from officially launching POS and getting away from mining. And it's, the merge is supposedly on September 15th, which is like 2 weeks, basically. It's like 3 weeks. How about 3 weeks? But basically Amazon accounts for 52% of the nodes right now, according to this pie chart they're showing here.
Yeah.
And then Hetzner Online GmbH is like 16%, then Oracle is in there 4%, Google Cloud, and so basically the giant DigitalOcean is 2%. The giant majority of all this stuff is known providers, but Amazon and this other one together are almost 70%. So
Right.
What's your more educated take on that? First off, how bad is that actually? Well, just start with that.
It can be very bad. I look at it from the opposite direction of Parler. You remember what happened to Parler? There was a synchronized takedown from Google, Amazon, and several other providers of Parler. They basically said, okay, anything related to Parler, it's off our network. And they did it on the same day. And I've never seen so many FANG organizations coordinate. Yeah, Apple also coordinates so quickly and so thoroughly as to remove a particular, and this is, this kind of touches on the woke and cancel culture kind of thing, because that's really where that was coming from.
Yeah.
But the fact that it could happen in such a coordinated fashion so quickly on the same day within hours of each organization's it blew my mind. I mean, that kind of coordination that looked like a freaking CIA movie in the making,
Yeah. Which, by the way, do you remember the Hunter Biden story thing? That when that Hunter Biden laptop story that the New York Post posted and was instantly banned off of Twitter and Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg was on the Joe Rogan podcast last week or so, which is I did not expect. And he admitted, he said that the FBI came to them and said, oh, there's going to be some sort of election misinformation coming around soon. Just make sure you do what you can to make sure that's squelched. And so then when the Hunter story came out, at Facebook algorithmically pushed it down, way down. And but it's which basically they're operating as a large entity, very large entity in a country, and I guess operating under the presupposition that law enforcement is the good guys, which is really hard to not, it's hard to be all, but then one of the more respected, I guess, arms of law enforcement comes and tells them to censor. So this isn't oh, look how evil Facebook is. He's Mark Zuckerberg's reptilian skin is coming through and he's just trying to control the world. It's maybe he's just running a business, and then the FBI comes to him and says, do this. And you just I guess I should do this. And
it's because if he doesn't, the FBI could come against him.
And it's not just if he doesn't, there's immediate consequences. But if he doesn't, then it's just oh,
no, that's going to go into the FBI file.
Yeah,
refused our request.
Or then maybe they start to do more direct orders rather than just hey, why don't you? They want to cooperate with law enforcement, right?
Yeah, or they activate the operatives that they already have working inside the organization.
That could be possible too. But so that's exactly the same thing. So how hard is it to just switch cloud providers if you're an Ethereum node?
Oh, it's not too bad. I mean, it takes. I mean, I can't remember how long it takes to sync right now, but it can take several days to sync. But that's the most painful part. You could have them. You can automate this. If your node goes down, you can have another metering node watch your existing node, and if it goes down, to just kick off a spin up cycle on another network. The challenge here is that Amazon servers are all over the place. Google Cloud servers are all over the place. I don't know about Hetzner. I haven't used them, but the others I've used, and there's a number of other cloud providers that are out there that can do this kind of thing. The reason you go with these guys is because they're reliable and they
cheap.
typically don't go down. And what?
Probably in cheap compared to like other
Yeah.
stuff or doing it yourself.
Right. Yeah. All the boutique shops, you're going to pay 10 to 15% more for the service, and you might get a little bit more hand holding and somebody you can talk to on the phone. But that's why you end up with those because they're generally cheaper. But so I wouldn't say it's difficult. It does take some infrastructure setup to have it be automated. If you don't have it automated, you're just going to notice one day, oh crap, my node's down. Why will it be down? And then there might be an email, hey, we had to shut down your node because you were operating an unlawful node. Which makes me sick to my stomach, but that kind of thing has happened. I had a friend who had a business back this is not new, by the way, this is not a new thing. I'm just saying, like, this has happened before and has happened many, many times. Is very common in this space. Anyway, I had a friend who was running a website creation and storefront management business, like so online storefronts and online business. He had 350 businesses that were using his software, and it was all in one cloud server environment. The IP address of a couple of the machines in that same network were targeted by the FBI and essentially shut down. And because those IPs were like core root level IPs within that network, hundreds of websites were shut down at the same time. All of this guy's whole business was shut down, and it took him months of communications with the government to even get a response as to what had happened. And because they not only did they shut it down, but they locked down all the servers because there was a claim that there was sensitive information on them. So every business that was operating, this was the late 90s, maybe early 2000s that this happened. And these kinds of procedures have been happening a lot. If there's any detected illegal activity, if they claim that there's, a common claim is that there's child porn on a server, so they shut down whole swaths of sections of the public internet to just stop the distribution, as they say. But who knows? Who knows if that's real? Because of course that information never comes out, and who knows, how many businesses have been destroyed because of those regulatory operations that are done in a haphazard and broken fashion with no real recourse. There's no money for those people. There's no insurance for those people. Maybe there is, but it's not being offered to them in a way that they can see it. So I just think this situation is a real concern. And all it takes is some political cancel culture, a little bit of political pressure, a little bit of FBI or CIA interest or threat against the dollar, and somebody's going to move to shut it down. Now, I think Ethereum in particular may be a little bit protected because JP Morgan and several other banks are highly invested in the Ethereum network in particular. I heard JP Morgan.
Yeah, like for stable coins and stuff, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. But even the infrastructure for projects like the MetaMask wallet, JP Morgan and Consensus together own 60 to 75% of that infrastructure and have been caught censoring transactions on the network using their infrastructure. So I think in that way, because they think they have a little bit of control or some ownership or stake in the game, that is the banks and the governments by way of the banks, they're staked in Ethereum. So the Ethereum, they may find a way to keep it up and running without completely doing a shutdown. But I would certainly say if anybody threatens the Ethereum network in the same ways, with decentralization and proof of stake value, perhaps that is functional, then I wouldn't be surprised if that other network might get targeted and brought down, but with the support of organizations like the FBI, the CIA, and whoever might be contracted by Amazon and owners, JP Morgan Chase, owners of the Ethereum network. So yeah, that's my take.
Well, that's the other thing. It might turn out, I mean, at the L1 level, it seems like both Bitcoin and Ethereum can be relatively hardy as far as like censorship resistance because of the ability to switch jurisdictions for your nodes or whatever. And like, if the mining gets banned or censored in the US, you can start mining somewhere else. And even if you're like excluding blocks or trying to orphan blocks with certain transactions in it, then if you don't have those in, then the uncensored chain would split off from the main chain. But then that's kind of the valuable chain, probably the uncensored one, right? Depends on if enough users buy into that idea. So all those kinds of things make it so that, it's not like you can't censor. You definitely can, but like it's more difficult. Now the challenge though is L2. Like if everyone has their money on Lightning and uses like these 5 big Lightning hubs to go through, and then the government goes to all those and says you cannot redirect from these users, or you have to know the path, of like the routing path in order to process transactions. It's like a KYC on Lightning. You could do something like that. You could do the whole Lightning network. You could make it so that if you don't use these big hubs, now you just got to bootstrap your own little route between other little people, and then you got to manage liquidity. If everyone starts going through, then like it just becomes like and then if that node becomes too big, then they get censored. And the same thing with Ethereum. So like, I don't think I've noticed because I've been looking into deep dives of NFTs these days. And obviously that's where the whole wax thing came from. But also I've been looking into token gating, which the Discord thing, this little cool little super chat right here is a form of token gating right there. But you can do token gating much more than just like a Discord bot. You can do Telegram channels. You can do a private YouTube video and stuff. You can token gate that. You can do there's just a million things. So I've been looking into all this kind of stuff. And while I've been looking into this stuff, I noticed that almost all the activity is on Ethereum, but the number 2 doesn't seem to be another network like Solana. It seems to be Polygon. Polygon's really surging, it seems like. And it's trending on Twitter here and there. And so if I do, or probably when I do, like non-wax NFTs to do other stuff, I'll probably get to start doing some on Polygon, or at least for the people that don't want to use wax. But the problem is, it's worth to follow Justin Bonds, who's like a crypto capital guy, like a researcher and stuff out of the Netherlands. He has some great Twitter threads on like deep dives on stuff like why Solana sucks, which is, you don't have to be a genius to know that, but he has a few good ones on Polygon. Basically, the whole Polygon network is like run on an Ethereum smart contract, and it's in like a 5 of 9 multi-sig or something. And 4 of those 5 signatures are like the Polygon founding team. And so it's like, in my view, again, I'm not going to, you still buy my NFTs when I make them on Polygon, but it seems like relatively insecure, where I'm sure you can upgrade over time. You can like, all right, maybe make it into like more, or like distribute the keys, or like whatever. I'm sure you can improve stuff over time, and there's a bunch of stuff coming to Polygon to make it like a truer L2 rather than just like the Polygon POS sidechain thing. A bunch of stuff that like always makes my head explode, like everything in Ethereum. But the point is, like, what if everyone who is doing everything, like unstoppable domains, are now doing stuff on Polygon, for example, because Ethereum's way too expensive. And so what if just the government says, all right, Polygon, I know you 4 of the 5 people. Like, I know you guys, and then this guy over here. You got to start censoring, or you got to do this or whatever. You got to whatever else. And then, okay, you could still use Ethereum, but now it costs Ethereum fees. And that giant influx of new traffic on chain starts to rip stuff up. And which, by the way, let me just hit on this news story before you get into the thoughtful rant I can just see brewing behind your eyes. Is lower cost, higher speeds after Ethereum's merge? Don't count on it. In general, most ordinary users will not notice much change. The real changes for average users will only be seen after the sharding mechanism is introduced 6 months later. But really, it's just going to improve like the immediate effects of a proof of stake merge are going to be like proof of stake, which is, perhaps better security, perhaps less energy cost. But I think that people are thinking as soon as the merge is there, we're going to have like sub-cent fees on L1. It's like, not really, not for a while. So in the meantime, this is the window, right? This is the window where it's especially, an issue. Anyway, rant.
Yeah.
Rant, my minion.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess one of the things that you made me think of is that in order, again, I'm always looking at what the risk is from the regulators, because it's like in a lot of ways I look at it like we're living in this jungle. I like to look at humans as sovereign beings, and whatever creature we represent in the jungle, that's who we are. But there is this predator out there that we call the government, and
I thought it was called Fluffy Pony. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's one of them. That's a different kind of. I mean, there's predators of many flavors, but the particular one I'm interested in is the one who's going to coerce me or try to coerce me, which literally is a theft of my freedom. And they do that in many different ways, through financial threat, through physical threat, through there's a lot of things that the psychological threat and manipulation. All these different forms of coercion that they bring, which is this predation. And what they want you to do is voluntarily give up. They want you to just voluntarily offer up your value, give your effort to them, so that they don't really have to work hard for it. And I think that's the thing that we need to remember as creatures of this jungle, is there are more of us than there are of them. And that's one of the reasons that they don't want us to unite in any way. So when you get these viral movements or you get large agreement, they try to psychologically break it up first, because that's the easiest way to do it. So, and that's why centralized entities are targeted, because if you know those 5 people who are the node operators, and I'm quite confident that all of the major players in the crypto space have very thick files at the FBI and probably the CIA. And any of those people, all the OGs and all the node operators, if they have organizations, if they have employees, I can suggest with very strong likelihood that there are operatives working very close to those people. And I've had several conversations with people in the space who have confirmed this information on several occasions, right? So they're out there, they're working, they're watching, but that shouldn't make you afraid and compliant. That's what I'm saying. As creatures of the jungle, that there's predators out there, so you just have to take precautions. And I hope that these operators of these chains have taken such precautions, because if they haven't, then that it's going to be a very difficult game for them. If they're not resilient, if they can't stand up, then it's going to be very difficult. And that's why I think that the best path for these people is to be as public and open as with everything that they can, like Jeremy Kauffman, or completely private and anonymous, like Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, one or the other.
Yeah, you can't be in between. You can't be this, Cody Wilson, right? You can't be a Cody Wilson who's just like not really public but not really private, and do a thing that threatens the foundations of the entire military of the U.S. government.
And like 14-year-old girls too. That's another attack vector.
Yeah, well, that's how they got him. They just they targeted him.
Can you imagine
they
that?
were watching.
Just real quick on that though, like, can you imagine if you're like, you're one of the biggest threats to the power of government, just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you start going on sugardaddydating.com. I mean, what the hell? But
I mean,
I'm just saying.
yeah,
Despite
I get
that,
it.
it is what it is.
I mean, but they were supposed to be 18. He
Still.
didn't take precautions, right? He didn't take precautions. That's what I'm saying. Like that was not he was not being cautious in that move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets hard because they're watching,
It's a big
they're
no.
waiting, right?
So we should probably just like wrap up the news part of it with
Yeah,
just
sure.
the last Ethereum thing. I had some other stuff, but who cares? But Ethereum whales move holdings onto exchanges before the merge. The top 10 Ethereum non-exchange addresses have seen an 11% decline in their holdings over the past 3 months, while on-exchange whale addresses have seen a 78% increase. So isn't it great to have like blockchain analytics and stuff for that? And so I would just like that data. It's just fun to look at. Although privacy is more important than that. But my take on, at least the take it seems to be on that, is it seems like people are already bought the rumor and are willing to sell the news on the merge. They're like, so as usually
may be
happens. It's like,
Yeah, they're prepping to dump, right?
yeah, prep on the dump. And I guess that's just kind of what happens, right? Which always annoys me that people do that way. It's like, yay, big release. Like, if the release sucks, yes, dump. But if the release is great, don't dump.
Yeah, and you know what? There's that, and there's also like if you look at the technical analysis of Bitcoin and a lot of cryptos, like we're not yet out of the bear. We haven't, in my opinion, and many other professionals' opinion, we haven't really hit the capitulation phase of this bear market yet. And so it could be the combination of that, where the Ethereum holders are preparing for the dump, both from the perspective of the merge and potential catastrophic failure or mediocre success, or and that might actually trigger the next capitulation phase of the dump, which in my opinion would be a little bit of an acceleration, but not completely out of time with what a lot of technical analysts are expecting. So I think, yeah, it seems to be in line. The smart money is just preparing. It seems to me like that's what it says to me.
Yeah, I mean, especially like, people are getting hyped for the merge, so they're buying. And then if you dump on the news, you get to like make a bunch of money off of that. And if there's any, then you get to see if it's promising or not. Then you get to rebuy at the lower lows, and then
Right.
Just the usual kind of stuff. But it's just kind of funny
Yep.
how like how that kind of stuff works as far as like the market. I mean, we're not even a year past peak. Like,
Yeah, well,
I mean,
and the experts are doing really complex stuff. Like they're moving their Ethereum onto the network, getting ready to sell it off, while at the same time preparing to short it, and maybe they've got some cash on the side ready to pick it up on the dump. It's like, and they may pick up some just to hedge against their short. Like there's all kinds of plays that can be made with this.
yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into shilling mode, but think about what you want to shill. I do see that OneTime is typing here, so I'm just gonna camp out here until the message pops up. Sorry, OneTime, no pressure. That is kind of cool about like unlike the ooh, I did. Hold on a second. I got a CoinTree super chat. Might as well juggling all these super chats is a lot of fun.
Did you paywall me again?
I didn't specifically say that, but yeah.
Okay,
I mean, sorry, guilty as charged.
it's all right.
Let me
It's
just
all right.
remotely verify that this message isn't like an N bomb, and then because literally that was my first ever super chat. Or
Oh my God.
my first ever CoinTree donation message, and so I just want to make sure it's not that before putting it on the screen for everyone. No, I am not. I don't care if it's Jeremy saying it. Well, ooh, I got two. So they're not messages. There was no message in either of these, but anonymous sent
Donations.
37, Maynard James.
Thank
at
you, anonymous
45.
donations.
Very nice. Thank you, guys. If let me just make sure none of them did like a boomer thing and forgot and wanted to do a chat and like forgot how. Let me just restart this. It looks better. One time. Do you think we're in the then they fight you phase? When do we win? One time. When Evo? Yeah. So, what do you think, Chuck? Are we in the then they fight you phase?
I don't think so, not yet. Nope, we don't have enough adoption. It's not a big enough threat. They still think they have control, they being the regulators and the WEF and the IMF and the banksters of the world. They're very much still looking at crypto as a silly little phase. I have friends who are very much into crypto who work at very high levels at banks. And the banks, I don't know what kind of bubble they're in, but they really don't think that this crypto thing, like, it's like, who is that guy who was talking about how the fax machine, like the internet wasn't going to have any more impact than the fact Krugman? Was that Krugman?
Yeah, so it's one of those geniuses.
Yeah, I feel like there's this Krugmanism in in banking at the higher levels of banking and government. They think that they've been sitting in control. They've been sitting at the top of these hierarchies for so long. They're so used to be surrounded by power and sycophants that they just don't think that this is anything. They just don't believe it. They can't believe the movement that is out there, the excitement that is capturing the smartest minds of the world. They can't believe it. And they think that all of these smart minds and these excited individuals and these poor folks who are seeing the opportunity to regain control of their own financial freedom, they think that just by decree, they can shut it all down. And it's like they won't even recognize it's like the whole stupid war on drugs thing. They don't even realize that as soon as they make it illegal, they just create a new market that may be more profitable and lucrative for the fact that it's a black market. I mean, there's no good path for if you're a politician or a regulator, in my opinion, long term. You may earn a salary and you may be able to kill some people as an IRS agent and you may be protected by the government, but
assuming you can shoot straight. That's a big assuming,
and assuming you felt even a little bit threatened. Actually, you don't even have to feel threatened. You just have to think that there may be a future threat and you can kill a person's dog and a person, which is just mind-blowing. And that's written into law now. But see, that's my point is, they write these laws and they think that by decree that this is how it is now because it's law, and they're forgetting that we humans have ways of accomplishing things, and we've been doing it for thousands, maybe millions of years without laws. We didn't need laws to tell us how to do things. And in fact, the free market is probably the best possible, most efficient representation of value and energy exchange that any species on this planet has ever created. To be able to trade what I want for what you want, that's great. But being able to trade what I want for this thing that we call money, that is a technology, and then get whatever I want with that, that's meta levels above. And then be able to do that with anybody on the planet at any time, this is what threatens governments. And I don't think that they've quite figured out, both the regulators and all these control people and all these statists who think that the only way to behave is by decree and by law and by religion, which it all is. It's just a false way of looking at the world. It's not in alignment with reality. It's a giant gaslight. It's a giant con. And that's ultimately what this value stuff comes down to.
Yeah.
So they're not fighting us yet. And that's what I'm saying. They don't care. They don't even, they're still laughing at us, in my opinion. And I think they're still going to be laughing right up until the catastrophic demise of the US dollar. That's when I think they're going to start fighting us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's probably true. And I do definitely feel, as I mentioned before, the latest administration, not to get political, but it has this feeling of like robbing the place on their way out. Like it's burning, like they're robbing the Titanic on their way onto the lifeboats kind of thing. It kind of has that feeling. So we could be there very soon. But anyway.
Right.
Time to
Well,
show
we're
your
building
stuff.
them. These are our lifeboats. The whole crypto space and all the people in our networks. Get in touch with your tribe. Get in touch with your community. Grow food. Get some land.
Yes,
You know,
networks, not hierarchies. And
indeed.
all
Yes.
value is indeed corned beef. Of course. So, what did you have to shill today?
So I have recently joined on with an organization called MetaReset. I have been declared the director of ideology and values, which I'm going to completely disavow at
Wow.
some point, but at metareset.org. So metareset.org is an organization that is wanting to build a world where you can be whatever you want to be. You can conduct value exchange. They're going to be doing an NFT launch September 30th. But the experience of MetaReset, if you read the white papers and look into the information, is intended to start with what users want. And that's one of the reasons I joined on with them.
That's a great
I know,
start.
right? Well,
Not
a lot
what
of
they
people
hate.
forget.
Let's dig up
Well,
what users hate.
Well, because a lot of blockchain or NFT or a lot of these companies they have this vision of doing all kinds of things or being all kinds of things, and they forget about the essential value that they need to bring to the end user. And so MetaReset team recognizes and has the principles kind of built into their core team that if it's not valuable to the end user, we're not going to approach it. And that's why I've signed on with them, because it's a fundamental principle that aligns with my mission and purpose in the world.
Puts the fun and fundamental for sure.
Yeah, it's a great one to have. So so they're planning an NFT launch September 30th.
Do you have any idea of what network the NFTs are on and what the NFTs themselves do?
Well, there is a reset token out there, and I think it's going to be an ERC20 token right now. I got to double check. I'm still ramping up on all of the things, but there is a currency, and there's a reset token that's out there. It's listed on a few exchanges, but it's actually a node native token. So reset's going to be a native token for Meta people to utilize or earn, I'm reading off their website, utilize or earn daily wages, trade resources, chill at restaurants and lounges, date, provide services, or any kind of other kind of formats
So this is
that
where
Meta people decide.
where the dating stuff comes in, huh?
Well, I mean, they want to recreate a world and enable people to play a role in that world that could be completely different from who they are in this world. So you can kind of be your chosen person. So the Meta People launch of NFTs, the interesting thing about that is each Meta People NFT is a unique item, and once that unique item is created, there will be no other like it. So you will have your own unique meta person, Meta People NFT, and that's going to be launching September 30th. And I'll be trying to shill that wherever I can.
I mean, it sounds cool, and I'll probably try to look into that. And I mean, I don't really have time to do a lot of this stuff, but I would like to just put a foot in there, because I do know that the metaverse, it's weirdly overhyped in some ways, and all, but I know it's a big part of the future, and I want to kind of poke in. Also, I just want to see how long it takes until the whole place is like overrun by e-thoughts, and like that's
right,
kind of like a new monetization angle, because if you think about it, just instead of just sitting in and do like a hot tub live stream, you can offer like a more personalized experience, but also not like IRL with all the safety concerns and all the other stuff. It'll be very interesting, but that's a completely different like tangent.
Well, and that's what I want to explore. Like so one of the projects that I've contracted with them is to write an ebook, and this was my way of really having a reason to do some deep research on the metaverse, the space of metaverse, the NFTs, and all of that, and look at multiple projects and what's going on in the space, and really distill down into what principles are either present or we can expect in the future. And I'm hoping that this can be like used as a 101 for people who are new to maybe even crypto, but especially to the space of metaverse and 3D environments.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to be working with them on that. And again, it's metareset.org. Definitely check them out. And message me if you guys have any questions. They have there's a Telegram chat,
MetaResearch.org.
and they're on Discord. So yeah,
But they're not on mine because they don't own my NFTs. But that'll change soon, I hope.
right.
So anyway, in the description here, there's a link to buy NFTs on Atomic Hub, the little wax thingy, and it looks kind of like this. It's just a little logo that goes, kind of shines.
Nice.
And in the metadata, in the what do they call it? The mutable data section, which I can modify, even though I can't touch the rest of it after you get it. It has a link to the Discord as well as instructions on how to, verify and stuff. And so, like right now, the way the Honeycomb bot works, which is the bot that lets you into this kind of stuff, you have to like buy one of their NFTs, which is like 50 cents or something, and send it to them to verify with the bot, and then any server you're on, it can work on. So there's a little like step on that. But I mean, if you manage to, you need Wax to buy on Atomic Hub anyway. So if you already have it, should be a small step. However, in the future, I'm gonna like have a way for you to like buy it elsewhere, like with your favorite crypto, rather than just getting Wax or whatever, and not on that exchange. But anyway, it's a great time to officially present Chuck with the guest NFT, which you cannot buy these unless one of you dirty bastards who's been on the show decided to resell it. But everyone who comes on the show and shares their time with me, since I don't want to be like, I don't have the means to be paying everyone, and probably I figure this is a way to give back. This lets you into my Discord, also has all the instructions on how to get in. So you can get in. Now you're permanently in the super chat because you came on the show, and that's great.
Nice.
And so yeah, I'm gonna send that to you. I know we were rushing to get that done like right before the show, but like I'll get that taken care of.
Sweet.
We did have one last question. So Maynard James, who left the donation on CoinTree, didn't have a question there, but he did comment on Odyssey, which is, Chuck, why are you moving to Texas, and where in Texas? Austin? And obviously you can answer that if you want, or you can, you can just message him back on Odyssey or whatever.
Right on. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of public right now that I am in Austin, and I intend to make this my new home. At least at this point, I don't see any reason to change that. I got a great network here, lots of friends, lots of opportunities. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. All right, well, thanks very much for being on, Chuck. This has been a pleasure as always, and it's a good time when I have to like shut up a lot / cut you off a lot, because there's a lot of things, like there's just so far we could go with each one of these points, and we could go, but it's just like we already burned through an hour and a half. So
I know,
like it went really fast, and so I don't want these to be 3 hour long. Like I'm not Rogan, I'm not that good yet. Maybe at some point. But special ones, I will do special editions at some point. Like one of my most popular early of these ones was on Christmas, or Christmas Eve or something like that, or the eve of Christmas Eve, I don't know, where I had Naomi, Eleanor, and Ken Bozak all came on at different points and just had a good old time. And like it was like a 3 hour one, so I'm not opposed to that, but just typically. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for putting up with the absence in between other live shows. I hope you like the relaunch. I hope you get some NFTs and get into that cool Discord. I'm going to be making a lot more cool token gated stuff. Stuff to look forward to, obviously, is, I'm going to do that interview with Chad. I'm going to launch a website, and I'm going to be doing a follow-up to the How to Live on Crypto series on how to start and run a business on crypto. And all the stuff has been like, how do you make a decentralized website? How do you take payments and do accounting with crypto? How do you sell token gate things and sell exclusive perks and things like that as a content creator? How do you make sure all your content is backed up somewhere? Like all that stuff, so that anyone who's like, I want to like live on crypto, but my business, and then the other people who are like, well, I could run a business clandestinely, but like that doesn't work. I want to be legit. It's like how to be legit, but at the same time, how to like censorship resist yourself. So that's coming. And of course, yeah, lots of good stuff, lots of fun stuff. Hope you enjoy the show. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thanks again, Chuck. And yeah, I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye, guys.